What's up, people? How goes it, internet? Welcome to the Geek Chat, the Week in Geek. Oh, man, we're missing Duke tonight. All I know is I got a text from him about an hour ago saying, I can't make the chat. Shit's gone really wrong at work or something like that. I was like, oh, damn. So I told him I'd give him plenty of shit about it later. Since I was planning to talk about a whole bunch of Walking Dead stuff tonight, because, well, we're really the only two that give a shit about that. That's okay. I'll talk about it anyway. I don't care.
You're like the only two in the world.
Not really. It still gets ridiculously high ratings, like way more than it should, honestly. For where it's at quality-wise, it's still like within the top 3 shows on television. Like every fucking
what does that
week.
mean? What, like, how many views is that?
Well, no, I mean, no show gets views like it used to. Like back in the 90s, shows would get 15, 20 million views, things like that. Nowadays, if you get 4 million or more, like you're doing really good, and it does. So, that's what that is. So that means, and that again is people actually watching. That doesn't include people streaming it later on or anything like that. So like people who watch it the night it comes out, and I think those numbers come from people watching on television, with their cable service, or if they use the AMC service where you can watch live TV. I forget what the fuck it's called. So if you're watching live, basically, they get like good numbers and stuff. I don't know why. It's no longer and hasn't been for a while the best show on television. But it's still there, man. And I think a lot of people are just like doing what I do and what Duke does, which is we're just like we've invested so much time into this show. Like it's like, well, I might as well just keep watching it at this point. So you're just kind of like, well, I might as well do it. Why not? I want to see how this fucking thing ends. I want to see how it plays out. I want to see what the fuck's going to happen next. And that's kind of where it's at. I mean, that's why I watch it now at this point. So
yeah, those first 2 episodes were kind of rough.
Well, I will say I've definitely seen worse.
Oh yeah.
I didn't want to like, cut off my arm while watching the show. There just wasn't a lot that happened. Like it was 2 episodes, and like you could have knocked that out in an episode. There's too much stretching the storylines out where it's just not necessary anymore. So
it's going to be what, 10 more episodes or 14 more? How many more episodes?
No, we're going. There's 8 episodes left, and that includes those first 2. So now we got 6 left.
Yeah, that's not a good way to end it.
So I don't know. I mean, of course, they're not really ending it. I mean,
right.
It's not going anywhere.
But for the main series,
there's 3 spin-off shows going off of this damn thing. Then there's still 2 other shows that are on. That was the other thing I want to talk about, because I finally caught up on Fear the Walking Dead and Walking Dead World Beyond. And I can surprisingly and pleasantly say that season 2 of Walking Dead World Beyond did not make me want to put a fucking drill bit through my head. Which was surprising, because that first season was fucking awful. Like, it was just, there was no redeeming qualities to that season of television. Like, total in the entire season, there may have been 5 to 10 minutes worth of information I got from it that I found interesting only because it's tied to that other big group, the CRM, Civic Republic, or whatever the fuck they're called, that we know that's where Rick is. So like literally in a 10 episode run of a season of television, there was like 5, maybe 10 minutes worth of information that I actually, like, I wouldn't even say enjoyed, but was like, okay, that's good to know. Right? Season 1 was fucking horrible. Just plain damned horrible. Season 2 was not great, but they fixed a lot of the problems they had in season 1. Primarily the fact that they've only focused on the kids. And when they did focus on the kids in season 1, the kids were all fucking stupid. like somehow they hadn't just grown up in the zombie apocalypse and they had horrible parents that didn't teach them the basics of survival in a zombie apocalypse, you know? So season 2, like, doesn't have any of that shit in it, and it focuses way more on the adults and the people who are doing shit that you're interested in, that are tied to all those experiments that are going on with the zombies and trying to figure out, and more stuff going on with the CRM and what they're doing to try and, you know, bring in the new world. And there was much more interesting shit in season 2. Still was not great. I'm still not saying you got to watch this show or recommending it. I will say, however, there was a Rick nod to it in the final episode, which I did appreciate as a fan, but much better. I will say that.
It seems to me that if you're a kid growing up in the zombie apocalypse and you don't like figure out survival skills, that you're not going to grow up in the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly.
Shitty parents are not. Like you could be like a like homeless kid, no parents, orphan out in the middle of the woods and figure shit out, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or you're just going to get eaten like within a, you know, however much amount of time.
Yep. And it was just a horrible shit of a first season that does not ever deserve to be viewed by any human being's eyes ever. In fact, I feel bad that someday, years and years and years from now, decades from now, hundreds of years from now, thousands of years from now, some alien species is going to run across our broadcasts and get that shit. And that's what they're going to fucking think of us. Because that was so goddamn horrible. Season 2, I watched, and I was like, okay, it's watchable. I'll leave it at that. And it does have one character in it from the Walking Dead show. And it does have ties to Rick. And there's stuff at the end of the season that ties into one of the spinoffs that they're doing. And so there was stuff in it that even if, like, the annoying kids were on screen, like, you were, like, still getting something out of the show. So, again, I'm not saying I recommend this show. Please do not take the fact that I didn't want to put a drill bit through my head to mean that it's good. I didn't say that. Okay? Said it was better than season 1, and I didn't want to like cut one of my balls off while watching. That's what I said. So please keep that in mind. Do not take that as a recommendation, okay, to anybody watching out there. I also caught up on Fear the Walking Dead, which I like. I mean, it has its ups and downs, but I mean, in the last few years, it's been better than The Walking Dead. So that's something at least. But watched the last season. Got all caught up on the storyline that's been going over the last 2 seasons, which basically, you know, going 3 seasons back, spoiler alert, but like it's 3 seasons ago, somebody like launched some fucking nukes and like nuked everywhere because they're in Texas, and apparently somebody nuked all of South Texas. Yay, thanks, appreciate that. So it's been like 2 seasons of dealing with a lot of the aftermath of that. And so that whole storyline kind of finally wrapped up, the aftermath of the nukes. So that finally wrapped up. And then in the very final episode, I will say there was something that happened that was like, what the fuck? How, what? So, you know, and again, like I said, I like the show. I didn't like it before Morgan came on. Once Morgan went from Walking Dead to Fear the Walking Dead, the show got vastly better. So, you know, again, take it for what you will. All the Walking Dead stuff right now out is either sucks or is okay. Right? Like, I still watch it. It's zombie shit. I've been watching since 2011 when it first came out, or was it 2010 now? I don't even remember. 2010, 2011. I've been watching since day fucking one. I'm going to keep watching this shit because I'm invested in the stories and all the shit. And that's the only zombie thing we have on television right now since... what's the other one that went off the air? Why am I blanking on the other zombie show from Sci-Fi Channel that was really good?
Fear the Walking Dead.
Z Nation.
Oh,
that was a great fucking show.
Yeah,
like,
that
from
was
beginning
actually
to end.
Yeah,
that was it was fun. It had humor in it. It had, you know, good characters. Like, that was a great show from beginning to end. All 5 seasons of that. So I liked that show. It was good.
Dude, if you found Walking Dead right now and we're just like, let me just watch like the most recent episode.
Yeah, I wouldn't keep watching it.
Yeah, because yeah,
Yeah, exactly. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't keep watching it.
there's no reason to. The only reason why you'd still watch it is because you've been watching since
Because I've
2010.
been watching it.
Because
Yeah.
you've been watching like since before Bitcoin was a thing. You know
Exactly. Yeah. It's true. Absolutely true. So, but yeah. So that I mean, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen in Walking Dead. I know there's going to be a lot of pissed off people if Rick doesn't show up at the end. He is getting his own spinoff. Him and Michonne are getting their own show next year. There's also the Daryl show next year, which was hinted at in the end of Beyond, Walking Dead World Beyond. So his show was hinted at the end of that one. We know Rick's and Michonne's getting their own show. I've already seen, set photos and things like that of the Negan and Maggie show that's coming. So there's 3 spinoffs coming from this show. We got 3 shows on now. One's ending. 3 more shows coming. So there's going to be 4 fucking Walking Dead shows. 5 Walking Dead shows. Jesus Christ. There's going to be 5 Walking Dead shows coming next year. I think, unless they're ending, they're not ending Fear the Walking Dead, because that show ended on a cliffhanger. I say World Beyond, that show ended like it could have been the end of the show. I don't know if they're bringing that one back. So there's going to be at least fucking 4 shows, Walking Dead shows next year after the main show ends. And I don't know if any of them are going to be good. I don't know. I hope at least the Michonne and Rick show is going to be good. I'd like for all of them to be good. I like it when they're good. I love good entertainment. I love good television shows. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't know.
Dude, you do like 6 podcasts a week, and like they're more interesting to me than the fucking Walking Dead shit. Like an individual streaming from South Texas from his game room.
They're more interesting to me too. So.
Off the cuff.
Yeah. Roland Tripp says, Werewolf by Night worth watching. No, actually it's not. Me and my wife watched that last night. It's about an hour-long, like, quote-unquote Halloween special that takes place in the Marvel world. And they took a character, Werewolf by Night, this character, who's a werewolf character in the Marvel Universe. And they crafted, out of an hour, they crafted 45 minutes of boring story. And then the last 15 minutes were really good. And so I can't justify recommending that. The last 15 minutes were good. And in fact, the last 15 minutes hints at, and it's in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything here. It's in the trailer, but like, not Swamp Thing, the guy who DC Comics ripped off to create Swamp Thing, which is a character called Man Thing, who actually came out before Swamp Thing did, is a Marvel character. And he's this dude that got turned into a swamp monster, right? And he's been a fan favorite in horror comics for a long time because he started out as was kind of one of these Marvel horror comics back in the 70s. And Werewolf by Night, the werewolf character, was the same thing, which I didn't really read his comic. But, so they took these 2 horror characters. Man Thing is really not hardly in it. He shows up one time, I think, for just a few seconds, up until the very last 10 or 15 minutes. And then in the last 5 minutes, they give us just this good scene that lasts about 5 minutes or so of the character, the werewolf character, and Man Thing, and just them interacting. And that 5 minutes was fucking amazing. That should have been the whole goddamn show. Like, I don't know why we got the rest of the fucking show. None of the rest of it I gave a shit about. Like I said, at the very end, you finally get the fucking werewolf in the last 15 minutes of the show. You get a lot of action. You get motherfuckers getting slaughtered, like getting their fucking heads ripped off and shit. And it's actually really good. Last 15 minutes are good. And then in the last 5 minutes, you get like what the show should have been, which is like, oh, here's this dude who turns into a werewolf who's like best friends with this swamp monster. And it was literally just 5 minutes of them like in the woods, like, because they live on the run because they're fucking creatures, right? And so it's 5 minutes of them like next to the tent where they're camping in the woods, just having like regular friend interactions. And even though Man-Thing doesn't talk, like not in English, right? Like you're getting his dialogue from the other character who's responding to him, kind of like Han Solo and Chewbacca, right? So that's how you're figuring out what he's saying. That shit was fucking great. That shit was entertaining. It was funny. Those two characters worked great together. Like that would make a great like buddy monster show. Why I didn't get an hour of that, I don't fucking know. Because the rest of the show fucking sucked. It was boring as shit.
So for the first 40 minutes, was it like a classic horror story, like a classic horror movie?
Trying to make it like some kind of old Vincent Price kind of thing, you know, black and white and, you know, spooky mansion. And there's this thing and a bunch of characters coming together and they're all after the same thing. And like, I get what they were doing, but it wasn't done well.
Right.
You know, where the show should have been all about Man-Thing and the werewolf. That's what it should have been because the last 5 minutes was fucking great. The last 5 minutes was fine. Like, watch, here's what you do. Start at, or whatever it is. I don't know. I think it was about an hour. I'm just taking a guess. I don't know. Watch from the minute the werewolf, where the dude starts to transform into the werewolf, which is, again, like the last 10, 15 minutes. Say 15 minutes from then. Skip to like 15 minutes from the end. And then just watch that. That shit's good. But I can't recommend it as a show because the whole thing wasn't good. Most of it wasn't good at all. Like, I get what they were doing, you know, and it's Halloween, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, like, it was not done well. They completely missed the mark on what they should have been focusing on. Instead of trying to tell this, like, fucking old school, you know, story on you know, oh, creepy, you know, but it's like the premise is some dude died and a bunch of people show up to his mansion at his funeral and they're all competing to win the Bloodstone, which is this magical thing. And one of the people there is his daughter, and one of the people is the guy that eventually turns into a werewolf. And Man-Thing's like hiding outside in the bushes most of the fucking episode. And like then a bunch of just random other characters who are all like various forms of like supernatural hunters and things like that. And most of the show is just them like killing each other off and competing to win this Bloodstone. And then you get to the end and finally the werewolf shows up. And then you get the buddy Man-Thing stuff. Again, that shit was great. That shit was good. So just skip to the end and maybe you'll enjoy it because the rest of it doesn't mean anything. The rest of it doesn't mean shit. Like none of that other crap matters. It's not even any good. So just like skip to the last 15 minutes and watch from there. And if you want to do that, I mean, look, if you already have Disney Plus, you want to just put it on and like do some other shit until it gets to that point, just so you have kind of an understanding of what's going on, just like some basic plot points. Sure. Why not? But like they really missed the mark on this one because they showed at the end the potential for an actual good show. And that's not what they fucking gave us. So, you know.
Was the Darkhold in it at all?
No, Darkhold wasn't in it. No.
Okay, because that was like the lore of the comic books. That was like a big part of it.
See, I never read Werewolf by Night. I read some Man-Thing. I would say there was a couple of issues of Werewolf by Night that I read, mostly because Moon Knight showed up.
Yeah.
And so I actually used to have that original, like, that was Moon Knight's first appearance, which God knows how much money that fucking comic's worth now. I don't have it anymore. But, you know, so I did read some Werewolf by Night, but I not enough to really know much about the character of the werewolf. I don't even remember his real name when he's a human. I can't even remember his name. And I just watched a show about him, and I don't even remember his name, if that tells you anything. And then Man-Thing I read a little bit more of, not a lot, but I didn't really read a lot of the horror comics. I read more of the superhero stuff. So they weren't really in my wheelhouse, although I did read some of it.
What were your main comics that you read?
Spider-Man, anything X-Men related, I was big on. Anything because Spider-Man had, at the time when I was reading comics, 4 different comic books. He had Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Peter Parker, Web of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, and then there was just the Spider-Man comic book. So he had those 4. Although the Spider-Man comic book was late in the game, that didn't come out till the early 90s, and I'd been reading Spider-Man since, like, I don't know, 86 or 87. And then I read all the Punisher stuff, all the X-Men stuff. So X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, X-Factor, Wolverine, Marvel Comic Presents, which was all very Wolverine focused. I'm trying to think what other X books there were out there. New Mutants, loved New Mutants, which turned into X-Force. So read all that stuff. The only DC I really regularly read was Superman, because I grew up on Superman. It was first. That's how I learned to read, was reading old Superman comics when I was a little kid.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. So it does. No, it really does. It absolutely does. But that's how I learned to read. Once I could figure out the basics, I started reading Superman comics, and so I always read Superman. I did read other stuff in DC also, some Justice League, some Batman, stuff like that. But I was much more Marvel focused than DC focused.
I gotta say, my favorite growing up though, Spawn.
Spawn was awesome. Spawn was later on, because that didn't come out till the 90s. When Spawn dropped, because I'm a little bit older than you. But when Spawn came out, I read all the Image stuff. So when Image Comics came out, and we got Spawn, and we got Wetworks, and we got all the different stuff that those creators had come over and started with Image. I read all that crap.
I just like the artwork out of Spawn, dude. You could take like any random page, like cut it out and put it on your wall like it's a poster. Like it was just so well done, so intricate, and so unlike a lot of the different comics of the time anyway. There's more comics that are like that now.
I mean, yeah, as far as the storylines go, there was a lot that was, most of Image Comics was a complete ripoff. Like what they did is there was a bunch of creators that worked for Marvel. Because I knew who McFarlane was while he was still working at Marvel, because he used to draw Spider-Man. So he had drawn Spider-Man. He comes over.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. He comes over and he creates a character that's like a demon version of Spider-Man. The same fucking eye shape, you know what I mean? Like he basically ripped off Spider-Man to create Spawn as far as the look of the character. I'm not talking about the storyline. And then Rob Liefeld did the same thing. He was doing New Mutants and X-Force. Then he comes over and starts creating a bunch of characters that look like his X-Force characters. And so there was a lot of that going on. Image Comics was a big, like Dale Keown. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. He used to draw Incredible Hulk. Then he comes over to Image and creates Pitt, who is just big and gray instead of green and has long hair with a ponytail instead of short hair. But it's fucking just Hulk. He's drawing Hulk again. Like a lot of those dudes came over and just started ripping off Marvel Comics. So there was a lot of that shit going on. I still read all that shit. I still loved them. So, but yeah. I got into all that shit, and then I'm trying to think. I read Avengers. I didn't really get into Iron Man outside of the Avengers. Like I read some of his stuff, but not a lot. Captain America, obviously, always loved Captain America. Ghost Rider was another one that I was a huge fan of. Ghost Rider. When they came out with all the 2099 stuff, like Spider-Man 2099, Doom 2099, Punisher 2099, read all that shit. So yeah, those were kind of some of the basics of what I read when I was a kid, throughout the 80s and 90s. There's a lot more. It just depends, because there was always big crossover storylines that when those would come out, I would buy all the comics that came in that big storyline, whether it was an Iron Man comic or a Spider-Man comic or a X-Men comic or whatever. If it tied into one big storyline, I would buy all of those. So,
I quit baseball for X-Men, as you know.
Yeah.
So
I know.
And then
they're coming out. They're coming out. Well, I know they're coming out with a new show. They're calling it X-Men 97. But they've also got a whole bunch of figures coming out directly based on that show. So they've already started dropping some. So they got like Wolverine and like all the characters. They're releasing figures in their X-Men animated series, like costumes and shit like that. There's like 5 of them out already, I think. And they're releasing more because people are buying the shit out of them, because it's a bunch of dudes who are our age who watched X-Men the animated series when they were kids, and they're like, well, now I want the fucking figure. So they know their fucking audience. All right, let me get this super chat that's been sitting there for a while. I apologize there, Steven. I do see it. We just kind of got on a roll. Steven says, just started watching Walking Dead again. Started midway into season 7, since that's the last part I remember. Been a while. Yeah, season 7's been a while because we're on season 11 now. And there was also like a year-long break because of COVID. And season 11's gotten broken up into 3 parts. That's taken almost 2 years to get through. So, yeah, you're like 6 years behind if you're starting at season 7. 6 or 7. God, how long has it been since season? I don't even remember how long ago season 7 was. It was a long time ago because we have so many fucking pauses. So, but yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while, man. Let's see. Couple that shoot says, "Are you only watching the NEA chat?" No, I'm not. I've got the other chat pulled up here too. It says, "Never really got into comics, but my dad was. He's your age." Thank you. Appreciate that. You fucking fetus. I think I more so got into MCU with the movies. That did it for a lot of people. There's a whole lot of people that got into Marvel characters or even Marvel comics because of the movies, which is cool. I mean, good, whatever. Comics are better than the fucking movies. But I mean, that's not like unreasonable or anything. There's 60 some odd years now of comic book history. So of course there's going to be way more things that have been done with the comics than could be possibly done with the movies, since we've only had the movies since 2009 now at this point. So obviously there's a lot of stuff to look at in the comics if you got into them because of the movies. But I grew up with comics and all the nerdy geeky shit. I grew up with Superman and Star Trek and Star Wars and Transformers and all the stuff and comic books galore. And reading, sci-fi books, and in the 90s when I started growing up, and it was less about comics and toys and more about trying to be an adult. When I bought a book, I was buying a Star Wars book. Whether it was Heir to the Empire or the X-Wing series or stuff like that, or I was getting books that were Star Trek related and stuff like that. And then of course I got back into all the toys and shit, about 10 years ago. But yeah, I grew up in that shit, so.
Heir to the Empire is one of my favorite all-time books, period. Not just like, I don't know, fantasy book or adventure book or Star Wars book or whatever. Like, honestly, Zahn? I forget his name.
Timothy Zahn.
Yeah, seriously good writer. Really, really good, like, conversationalist as far as his writing goes. Like, if you guys haven't read that, highly, highly recommended.
It is one of the best series of books. It's a trilogy.
Yep.
And it's one of the best series of books ever, as far as I'm concerned, whether sci-fi or anything else. It's fucking fantastic. So that was very, very well done. Emmanuel Fernandez has a super chat asking how much you average on tips on a slow day and a good day. Why does that matter? That's a weird question to ask, Emmanuel.
Never ask a man how much he makes.
I don't know. I don't think that's the information that you really put out there too often.
And it ranges widely.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine too, especially, time of year, time of week. Like if you get a big party versus a little party, that type of shit. There's probably so many factors that go into it that it's hard to fucking predict. So
I'll put it this way. I've made, on the low end, you would laugh and feel bad for me. On the high end, you'd be angry at me.
I would be angry at you. I hope you make a fuck ton of money.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, like, if you're like, oh, how much does, you know what I mean? Like, you'd be like, holy fuck you. Like,
yeah. Manuel says, are you a Pokemon or Simpsons fan? Any collectibles? I never got into Pokemon because it was after my time. I don't think it really wasn't the kind of thing I would have gotten into anyway, even if it had come along maybe when I was younger. But Pokemon came along in 95, I think, and I'm 18 at that point. I didn't give a shit about Pokemon. I still don't care about Pokemon. It was after my time. So it was just, something I never got into. It came along too late for me to get into it or anything. As far as Simpsons goes, I love the Simpsons. I don't have any Simpsons collectibles or anything. But I love the show. Although I will be honest, I haven't watched it in a really long time. I grew up watching The Simpsons since it premiered in 1989.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I watched it steadily all the way up into the 2000s. And then, at some point, life and work and kids and all that shit get in the way. And it was one of the shows that kind of went by the wayside. I do make time every year to watch the Treehouse of Horror episode. I always watch that, so I always watch the Halloween episode. But other than that, I don't really watch it anymore. My daughters watch it. especially my 8-year-old fucking loves The Simpsons. So, you know, she's always binge watching that. She'll just rewatch whole seasons when she's bored. So she loves that show.
I can honestly say I haven't regularly watched The Simpsons in probably 15 years.
Yeah, same here.
I've stopped watching it basically when they stopped doing character development and just made it completely commentary on politics and current events and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched it. I mean, it wasn't I mean, well, I'm not gonna say that. It kind of always did that to an extent. It was always, you know, commentary on the world. I don't know if are you saying it started to get preachy?
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying like the first 6 years they really developed like Bart, Lisa, Homer, and Marge, and all the 80-something characters that you got to know, and then it started going more towards, okay, well, we're out of ideas for all these characters to do their own stories. Let's comment on what's going on in the world.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it did that at some point, like in the 90s or 2000s, I honestly didn't notice. I can feel like I kind of stopped watching not long after the Simpsons movie came out. Whenever that came out, that was what, mid 2000s ish. It's kind of around the time I stopped watching.
You're describing the reasons I like South Park.
I do love South Park.
We need to get Matt to watch South Park because it's like
seriously. Like I said, I've watched the movie several times. Love the movie. I've watched a couple of the specials that have come out in the last few years, and I have watched, more than a handful of episodes. It's just not something I ever got into like on a regular basis. I've always liked the show when I've watched it or the movies. I've never, I just never got into it to the point where it was like must see TV or anything.
Dude, the movies are okay. They're not great, I wouldn't say. There are some episodes though that are like if you're not wearing fucking, what am I trying to say here? You'll have to fucking change your underwear because you'll laugh so hard. There we go.
Laugh so hard you piss yourself.
Yep.
Now, couple that shoot says growing up in the 2000s and 2010s, the comic book wasn't really a thing. No, it really hasn't. I mean, it is still a thing. Even today, it's still a thing. I mean, there's a comic book shop that is in my area that they still, sell comics and make money and all that kind of stuff. It's still a thing, but it is not what it used to be in the 80s and 90s. That is 100% true. Comic books are just not that same level of like pop culture phenomena that they were honestly for like 50, 60 years. I mean, honestly, comic books started blowing up. I mean, they had been around for a while, but they started blowing up right after World War II. And they became a very culturally relevant, thing for kids for decades. And yeah, some of that died off in the 2000s. And a lot of that was just replaced with movies, because now movies were doing the things that were in the comic books. And it's a lot easier to just watch a movie than read a new comic book, a 21-page comic once a month, So, but there's still a lot of people that do it. I mean, I occasionally read comics, but if I do, I don't read like individual comic books. Sometimes I'll pick up like a collection, that's like, oh, here's we've bound 12 issues of a comic that's one complete storyline together, and you can buy it as a book, that kind of stuff. And I don't do it that often. There's a couple that I try to regularly keep up with. Most of them are independent stuff that isn't Marvel or DC or anything. There's this one that I like to read called Saga, which is pretty cool. It's this weird futuristic sci-fi fucked up, very adult, you know what I mean? Like hard R rated comic that I still regularly read that one.
Hard R like Binger?
No, not like Binger. No, not that kind of hard R.
You said hard R. I don't know what you mean.
Hard R is an R rated.
Okay.
Yeah.
That means something different.
No. Hard R as in lots of people dying violently all the time and lots of tits and fucking. It mixed in with this giant sci-fi fantasy epic thing. So But so I still keep up with. Actually, I need to buy the newest trade for that one because I haven't bought the newest one yet. But that's one I like and I still keep up with. And then I kept up with Walking Dead. Walking Dead was another one. I bought those every 6 months. They'd release a new trade, and I would buy the trade when they came out. Of course, that comic ended 2, 3, 4 years ago, whatever it was now. I don't even remember. So that one I don't read anymore. So there's a few that I read, and occasionally I'll pick something up. Like I got this one that was this one book that was just this one, self-contained story about Vision from Marvel Comics, right? About Vision has decided, to create himself an entire family because, he's an android. So he creates a wife, he creates 2 kids, and it's just this storyline about what happens after that. That was actually really good. So I will occasionally buy stuff like that, and check that kind of stuff out. But in general, I don't read comics anymore. I don't go buy comics every month or anything. Just not something I'm as into anymore. Mostly because now, I don't know if anybody knows this. Anything you want to know is on YouTube. Like there is a channel that will break down. There's this one channel that's great. It's Comics Explained. It's fucking fantastic. Best comic historian. Comic Historian is also really good. He's probably the second best comic channel on YouTube. And they'll go and they'll just you just pick, go through their videos and just oh, I want to know about this storyline that happened in this series of comics. And they just break all that shit down and talk about what happened in the story and show you, a lot of the pictures, not all of them for copyright reasons, but they show you a lot of the artwork and stuff as they're explaining the story. And so if there's any storylines out there that you want to catch up on, you don't have to go buy the comics. You can hop on YouTube for free and watch some of that stuff, which is what I've done whenever there's a storyline or something that I want to catch up on, or a lot of times movies are coming out and it's oh, this is going to be loosely based on this storyline from the comics. It's oh, okay, well, I never read that storyline. Let me watch a video on it, that kind of thing, which is cool. And I don't get to go hunt down fucking comic books or any of that shit. And plus it doesn't cost anything. So, do that a lot. But yeah, that's usually how that's where I am with comics right now. Although I was huge, man. I mean, I had so many, those long boxes of comics. I don't know how big they are. What, a 3 foot long box or whatever it is. At one point total, I had 31 boxes of comics in my room, of those big boxes, 31 full of fucking comics. So that was where I was at, right before I decided to sell all the comics, and I made a bunch of money selling comics. And then the rest of them I actually gave to a family member. Whatever I had left, I just gave them away, which God to this day kills me. I wish I would have kept those motherfuckers. Because even though at the time those weren't the ones that sold, there was a lot of comic books that are worth a fuck ton of money now that I just gave away.
Didn't you buy your first vehicle by selling comics?
Yeah, no, I did. That was around the time that I kind of started getting out of comics as far as collecting comics. I wanted to buy a car. And so I went to a comic book convention with my friend. We rented a table. We brought all the stuff that we had that was worth, at the time, worth a lot of money. And I think that weekend I made about $2,500 on a Saturday and Sunday selling comics at a comic book convention. And I went out and bought a car the next week. So, yeah, I did that back when I was 16.
Sweet. Did you buy those Invincible toys?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do a review on those?
I just made the video today.
Okay.
And I just finished uploading it right before we started the chat, or not uploading it, just finished editing it right before we started the chat. I still got to do a couple things and get it uploaded onto YouTube. But yeah, I got those. They're pretty fucking sweet.
Yeah, they look pretty cool.
Yeah. So I picked those up because I know, and I was looking at them. First of all, they were cheap on Amazon.
Yeah, about $25, right?
Yeah, they were on sale because they usually sell for 30 something. And not only that, but I know for a fact when season 2 of that show comes back out on Amazon, dude, people are going to be buying those motherfuckers everywhere, and you're not going to be able to find them. And they certainly aren't going to be on sale. So if you're a fan of Invincible and like those toys or whatever, because, well, I say like those, the only people making them is Diamond Select, which is what they have on Amazon. Nobody else is making Invincible toys or action figures. So Like, if you want some, like, that's really the only game on the market. I think there might be a couple of import companies that are making them, but they make expensive ass shit. I'm too cheap to buy that crap. So,
Dude, you have like comic books and like action figures. Like I used to have Magic the Gathering cards.
Yeah.
Like I had like those huge boxes that have like 20 rows in them full. I had like 5 of those completely full. I had one that was full of just uncommons and rares, right? And I had all that shit in my trunk. And my tags were expired, right? And the apartment complex that I lived at had this policy where if your tags are expired, they'll tow your car. And at that particular point in my life, I didn't have a whole lot of money. And when they towed my car, it was like I could either pay rent or get my car out.
Yeah.
So I lost, I don't even know how. Like, if I was smart, I would have got my car out and just sold a bunch of Magic cards till I had rent. But
yeah.
Seriously.
You had rent and your car.
What time period was that?
I started, dude, I had like, I think it was 2nd edition all the way through Mirrodin, if you know what that is.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah.
I started playing Magic around the cons of Torquay and that kind of stuff, but I stopped it like 2 or 3 years in. I had a shitload of cards too.
Dude, 1st edition came out when I was in 7th grade, and I had like friends who'd play Magic in the hallway of junior high, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then like by the time I like asked my mom for stuff, it was 2nd generation. So I didn't have like the Lotus cards and all the crazy expensive ones that you can buy for like, I don't even know how much it goes for these days.
I remember reading somewhere that there was like a Magic card that sold for like hundreds of thousands of dollars or something like that.
Yeah, it's Lotus.
God damn. It's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never got into any of the card games, just like I never got into any of the tabletop games or anything like that.
The funny thing is, like, when I was a little kid, it was, everyone was like, buy baseball cards, buy baseball cards. Baseball cards are where it's at. And so I had like a metric shit ton of fucking baseball cards because that was going to be my retirement plan, right? Like every time I'd mow a lawn or fucking, shovel a driveway, that's basically where my money went, was to baseball cards. And they produce so much Topps and Fleer and all the rest of that crap where they're basically still worth nothing.
Yeah.
You can buy a whole set of Fleer cards for less than it cost when they made them right now because no one wants them.
Yeah. But they did the same thing with comics too. In the 90s, everybody was convinced every comic was going to be worth a ton of fucking money. But nobody took into consideration the fact that, well, they were worth a ton of money, not just because of certain characters being introduced or whatever, but because before the 1980s, collecting comics to the point that you went through some effort to try and preserve them didn't exist. In the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, kids trashed comic books. So to find comic books, first of all, that existed, that weren't completely just trashed and thrown away, that was in and of itself pretty cool. And then to find stuff in good condition was a bonus on top of that. So they were worth a lot of money. Plus, they didn't print nearly as many. Then you get to the 90s, and everybody's got the collector mindset, even kids. And on top of that, they're printing millions of copies of every fucking comic book. So there's no value to it whatsoever, because you can go to this day and get some copy of whatever rando comic from 1990, still in perfect fucking condition because somebody bought it, put it in a bag with a board in it, kept it in great condition, thinking it was going to be their fucking retirement someday. And come to find out, it's still worth the $1.25 it cost back then.
Dude, there was this really, really cool shop, though, that we used to go to, and they sold comic books, like collectible cards, and pipe tobacco. It was like the weirdest freaking thing. But, like, I don't know, I still love that smell, like the unburnt pipe tobacco, and you, like, walk into that shop. As soon as you burn it, I hate it. But, like, the unburnt pipe tobacco, it doesn't smell like cigarettes, doesn't smell like cigars, has, like, this aromatic flavor to it, and you get your comic home, and it would smell like that, like it just has like this visceral memory to me, and I really like that.
Yeah, no, fresh tobacco before it is burnt actually does smell good. So especially high end shit, not like shit that's in the fucking cigarettes, but like when you go to a tobacco shop, a head shop or something like that, you know what I mean? Like that shit actually smells good. So, yes, but there we are. Let's see. I don't know what else. I'm gonna trash. Let's see. I talked about Walking Dead and Werewolf by Night and all that shit.
The MCU show, the She-Hulk, it's actually getting pretty good now that Daredevil's in it.
Yeah, except that was the season finale.
No, that wasn't. Was it?
Yeah, that's the season finale.
Shit, I thought there was at least one more.
No, even in the episode, she goes I remember like when everything's going on, she's like, "Why are you guys still here?" It's like, wait, there's more time in the episode? Oh crap, this must be a season finale. Like she says it in the show.
Damn, I thought there was at least one more.
Who's a better lawyer, She-Hulk or Daredevil?
Oh, Daredevil by far. Yeah. Well, because the show starts off with them going head to head in court, and he fucking clobbers her in court.
Is that because she's a woman?
No, she had a really stupid client that wouldn't shut his fucking mouth.
Oh, yeah. Blame it on the client.
Yeah.
Yep. But then they fuck in the episode, so it's all good.
Right.
So yeah. Which is from the comics, because Daredevil and She-Hulk both in the comics got around. Man, they fucked everybody in the comics. So, yeah. Good times. Out there in the chat, Bjorn saying, "Where's Duke?" Duke was doing a work thing. I don't know what's going on with Duke. He's got work stuff he's taking care of. So, Donnie in the chat says, "Do you think Stranger Things toys will be worth anything?" Depends on what they are. I don't know. I mean, Stranger Things is big now, but as soon as that show's off the air, like there will be some nostalgia with it, but there's always a level of, just like what we were talking about with comics and baseball cards, right? Like creating these things in the midst of a fervor of excitement about a thing doesn't always, in fact, in most cases, does not equate to later on, once that thing is no longer a thing, that retaining any value. So
I don't know. Like,
I mean, sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't.
Well, the big market's the millennials, right? And millennials are eating that shit up, and they're going to get nostalgic real quick. So I think it could go up in value.
I mean, maybe. If it does, cool. I mean,
dude, there's the weirdest shit that goes up in value, Like, it's like the stuff that you wouldn't think that like kids play with and destroy, that they're, there's nothing left in an original package that 20 years later is worth a bunch of money. But then if you're buying, like, Beanie Babies at their height, like, you just wasted all your fucking money,
Yeah. I mean, look at the Happy Meals from McDonald's with, like, Mario or whatever. Remember back then? Yeah, that shit's expensive. And
great example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Over on the Geek Fusion side, Walt says there is one more episode of She-Hulk. There is? Then why did she say something about the season finale in the episode? I thought that's what she was saying, was that it was the season finale. If it's not, cool. Because I've actually, as much as this show is not geared towards men, right? It's just not, which is fine. My wife loves the fucking show, right? As much as it's not geared towards men, it's still a fun show. Like, I've still enjoyed it. It doesn't suck, right?
It has one good episode, and it was the last one.
Well, that one, and I love the fucking Madison and Wonger's episode. That shit was hilarious.
Yeah, that was a fun episode, but it wasn't as good as the last one, I would say.
I thought it so far, that one, the Wongers and Madison episode, is my favorite episode, because I was laughing my ass off the whole time. And then honestly, the episode where she goes to visit Emil and all those fucking like D-list superheroes are there, that was fun. This last episode with Daredevil was fun. Like, this show has kind of grown on me, even though it is not geared towards me at all. Like, I'm still enjoying it. So it's still fun. Sometimes it's stupid fun, but it's still fun. So, whatever. It is what it is, I guess. Zildjian in the chat says found 2 Dark Trooper 6-inch figures. Hold on to those. Those are selling for crazy amounts of money right now. So, because everybody wants those damn things. So they released these 6-inch figures of the Dark Troopers from that last season of Mandalorian. The Dark Troopers that Luke wiped out at the end. Yep. And those things are like impossible to find. I didn't even know they released them yet. I'd seen some people getting them in some places, but I thought they weren't like massively widely released yet. Well, I guess it is getting in close to Christmas, so that would make sense that they're starting to show up places. I don't collect that stuff. I don't collect 6-inch Star Wars figures. So I mean, I have.
You remember those 3 foot tall Darth Vader things that they had?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How much did those go up in value?
Oh yeah, those are worth a ton of money.
Really?
If you can find one, those are worth a lot of money. Yes.
Because I remember like before Christmas, they were like some astronomical amount of money to buy them, and then if you went into like Walmart or whatever right after Christmas, they were like half off.
Yeah.
And I thought about buying one then, but I'm like, dude, like, what do I want a 3 foot tall Darth Vader for?
It's like, yeah. No, yeah, those are worth a lot of money. I see shops selling those for hundreds of dollars. So
speaking of Star Wars, have y'all been watching Andor?
I watched the first 4 episodes. I haven't watched this last one yet. I'll be honest, like, it's kind of boring.
Yeah, the first 2 episodes I watched, and I'm gonna be like the Lord of the Ring show. I'll watch it all when it all comes out.
Yeah, I watched the first 3 episodes because they dropped all at once, and I thought the first 3 episodes together as like one story arc was good. I did like that, but then I watched the 4th episode, and I was like, basically nothing happened in this episode. Like a couple little things happened, but nothing significant. And so that's when I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to wait, just like you. I'm going to wait till it's all done so I can binge watch it all at once, because I don't want to just be getting little chunks of story a week apart. I want to just watch the whole thing. And so, yeah, I'm not gonna watch it till it's all done. When it's all over and there's all the episodes to binge, then I'm gonna watch all of them. But I'm not gonna do that. So until then, because I
haven't even started for that reason, because I just want to binge watch it.
Yeah, you should.
Something about waiting week to week for a show that's mediocre makes me lose interest real fucking quick, and then I never go back. But if it's like a mediocre show and I'm like rapid firing watching it, then I can get through it.
Yeah. Well, because then you have time, right? Like, you're not waiting a week going, God damn. You know what I mean? Like, you're just immediately into the next part. So if one episode is slow and not a lot happens, that's okay, because you're about to go directly into the next episode. So, yeah, no, it makes sense. And that's what I'm going to do. So I've stopped watching it. When it's all out, I'll binge watch it and go from there and see what I think of it. But
yeah, the only show I'm watching week to week right now is House of Dragons, and that's because every episode is pretty good. Like, there's only one episode I had a gripe about.
Yeah, so far, the House of Dragons has been killing it. I've been enjoying it. From every episode, I have absolutely loved. So I've had no complaints. I don't mind watching that week to week. I'm getting a kick out of it. So that one gets thumbs up. This last episode was great. Before that, but like everything's just good. The show's good. It's firing on all cylinders. It's just kicking ass, and I'm fully enjoying it. So it's my little fun Sunday night thing to watch. So,
dude, I did catch up on Rings of Power.
Does it get better? Because I've been waiting until it's over, and then I was going to try and binge watch it.
It's not as bad as people on the internet seem to think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, but it's not like Lord of the Rings quality, Hobbit quality shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm starting to get over the Mary Sue aspect of Galadriel and all that shit. Like, I don't know. If you just like turn off your brain and your fucking that part of your brain that says like, what the fuck? That's not Galadriel. Like, oh, what the fuck? That's not Elrond. You know?
The thing with the
just
Galadriel,
go with the
though,
story. It's okay.
The thing with Galadriel, though, it's like I look at her as like a teenager right now. Like, she is very energetic and kick-ass or whatever, and then she starts to mature and become like an enchantress or whatever.
I'm just saying, in like Lord of the Rings, all 3 movies, Hobbit, all 3 movies, anything that Tolkien's written that I've read anyway.
Yeah.
She's never like carried a sword or a dagger or been a fighter or any of that shit.
Right, but she's also hundreds and hundreds of years older at that point.
Fair, but I don't know, man. I like that part of it is kind of, that's the one part that I really have a problem with. I do like the story with the hobbits as it moves forward. It gets it kind of interesting, like what they have to deal with. I do like the story with the dwarves and like what they're doing, because that gets kind of interesting and it ties into like the Balrog and all that shit at the bottom of the pit. So yeah, it's cool, dude. It's not as bad as it's being portrayed on the internet by certain like I don't know, YouTube channels or whatever that fucking hate it. Because there's a whole bunch of YouTube channels that fucking hate it. And to be fair, there is some reason to that. And I think it ties back into the fact that they don't have the license to cover actually what Tolkien wrote in the Silmarillion. So there's that part of it. But for what it is, it's entertaining. I do like it. Visually, it's done pretty well. I'm not a fan of Don Lemon Legolas, you know?
Yeah.
What? Don Lemon Legolas. What?
Yeah, they have a elf who looks like Don Lemon. So I call him
Oh,
Don.
the guy from he's in the first couple episodes. I know who you're talking about now. I thought you were talking about like legitimately Legolas was in there. I was like, what?
No.
Because I'm like, I know he's old, but is he that fucking old? But I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. There's only one episode left, right? Like the finale's next week.
I don't know.
I think.
I got off of work the other day and I was just like, I don't have anything to watch, and I just was like, fuck it, I'll watch this. And
I think the finale's next week, so probably I may start binge watching it this week so that I can, watch the finale when it drops on Thursday, I think. But I was gonna fucking wait till the end because it was just not moving at a pace where I really could keep it. Like I would put it on. I tried multiple times to put the third episode I think on, and I would before I knew it, 10 minutes in, I'm doing other shit and I'm not paying attention, and it's just not holding my fucking attention. And so I just was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna wait. It's
the first couple episodes were a little rough, but it does get better.
All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, like I said, I think I'll check to make sure, but I think I saw something online that they had dropped the trailer for this next week, and it's supposed to be the finale. So if that's true, I'll start watching it this week so that I can catch up by the time the finale drops on Thursday, and then we'll see if it's any good. So.
Well, it does show you, at least in their version, how Mordor was created, which was pretty cool.
Okay. I already got the feeling that Mordor was being created. As soon as I saw fucking orcs fucking digging underground and taking out villages, I was like, oh, well, they're clearly creating Mordor. Was I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, yeah. I guess that as soon as I saw that shit in this, was that the second episode? I was like, oh, well, this is how Mordor's created. So, But yeah, I mean, I didn't get past the second episode, so I'm sure there's more to it than that. But
there is, but it's cool, and visually, again, they do a really good job with the CGI or whatever, it
looked good. I mean, the first two episodes looked beautiful. Yeah, everything that was done in those first two episodes looked great.
But it should with how much they're fucking spending. It's like what,
no
10
shit,
million.
The most expensive television show per episode ever.
Ridiculous.
So yeah, and it
how
already
much
renewed for
did
season
Battle
2.
of the Bastards cost? All the shit that they had in that.
Shit, man. And that's one of the greatest episodes of television I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, seriously.
So yeah, whatever.
It seemed like the Game of Thrones was starting to run out of money because they stopped putting in the wolf. They stopped doing a lot of the CGI stuff. Except for a couple of episodes at the end.
Yeah.
Well, the way that fucking Game of Thrones ended was just so atrocious to me.
They just rushed it, man. There was some good bones there that those two fuckers who ran the show, because they had originally gotten that contract to start doing Star Wars stuff. And then that got pulled away, so we basically wasted the end of Game of Thrones for nothing, because then it turns out they weren't going to do Star Wars. They rushed it. They rushed something that should have taken probably at least 12 episodes, and they crammed it into 7, and didn't give the time and attention to any of the storylines. And it was just a bad move, man. The execution of that last season was not good. I don't necessarily have a problem with the story points in the final season, at least most of them. There's a couple that bug me, but I don't have a problem with Bran becoming king, right? That doesn't bother me. I understood the basics of that. I had no problem with Daenerys fucking turning, losing her shit at the end. I mean, there were clues to that the whole fucking series that she was, the type of person who would do that. But it just was not executed well, and that's, and the build up to the White Walkers. And I get it, the show is Game of Thrones, not Game of White Walkers. But even that last battle, there was better ways they could have done it. Maybe even stretching it out to 2 episodes. That should have been a bigger deal than just, episode 4 is, or not, was it 3 or 4, whatever the fuck it was. All that episode, and then the whole White Walker thing's over and done with, and let's move on. Like, it was executed poorly.
Right, seeing as like season 1, episode 1 starts off as like night watch guy going through the woods, chased down and fucking eaten by zombies, like these White Walker zombie things. Like,
yeah, exactly.
The whole story arc, even though it's called Game of Thrones, was about that, and that was the thing that would have destroyed everything if they didn't do, what they did.
Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly.
I digress.
Yeah.
I do think Arya at the end killing the Night King was a badass scene, and it was a good move.
Didn't have any problem. I thought that was great. No problems with that whatsoever. Loved the episode right before that, when it's just a simple episode of everybody in the castle waiting, and we finally get to see all these characters that we've been watching for the 7 previous seasons finally all meet and be in the same place at the same fucking time. Loved that episode. Thought that was great.
And Bran is just waiting there for Jaime at the end. Jamie.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So there was a lot of good in there, and most of the story beats, as far as like the main plot points, didn't have a problem with them. It just was done poorly. It was executed poorly. So that's the issue that I had with it. But shit, I'm getting text messages. This is Duke. What is Duke? Why is Duke texting us instead of on the chat? That fucker. I don't know.
But I gotta go here.
Right.
You come to the chat later, yeah?
I am going to be in the chat later. Yes.
I will hold you to that, sir.
Okay.
But I'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
Later, Honda.
Calvin Republic in the chat says, you're allowed to like things even when they are objectively trash, like She-Hulk and Rings of Power. Well, I'm not there yet on Rings of Power, and I'm not saying that. I do find She-Hulk entertaining. It's not like a show that I would like go around and go, oh, you got to watch this or anything, because I don't think you have to. Is it fun? Yeah, it's a fun show. It's not a great show. It's a fun show. I like seeing, the different characters come in and, Daredevil or whatever, right? I think it's a fun show. But I'm not saying that by any means that it's like, oh, you got to watch this show, because no, you don't. You don't have to.
Out of the MCU shows, like, She-Hulk is second to last. Like, the last is Miss Marvel. For me, anyway.
I would say, if I'm right, and by the way, Kelvin probably dropped in a super chat, since I'll put at least $2 behind that statement. I would say, as far as order from least to best, for me personally, with the MCU shows we've gotten, and I got to try and remember all of them, the worst one is Miss Marvel. The next one up is, I'll say Falcon and Winter Soldier. I couldn't get, I liked John Walker, and I liked, there was some good action in it, but most of the plot was just dog shit.
Yeah.
I didn't give a shit about the terrorists. I don't know. There was just, I don't know. I think that show laid a lot of groundwork for some cool stuff that's going to happen later, but I didn't think the show itself was good. Then after that, I would say She-Hulk, because I did like She-Hulk better than Falcon and Winter Soldier, because it's fun, at least. Then it would be probably Moon Knight, which I did like. I don't mean to put it so low at the bottom. I did like the show. I have nothing bad to say about the show. It was a good show. But if we're ranking them, that's the way I'm going. Then it would be WandaVision. Then it would be probably after that, I would say What If?
Mm-hmm.
Then after that would be Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite is Loki.
Yep, I would go with you with that from the top down, except for maybe replace Probably replace Captain Winter Soldier with She-Hulk.
You'd swap those two? Yeah.
Yep.
And I get it. I understand. I'm just having more fun watching She-Hulk than I did watching Captain America Winter Soldier or Falcon Winter Soldier, whatever the fuck it's called. I just didn't find that show fun. So,
no, it wasn't fun. Although they did have Zemo in it.
Zemo dancing was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But and like I said, I liked John Walker. I thought that character was great. So there was good in the show. It's just in general, if I'm ranking all the shows for the MCU stuff, it's close to the bottom for me. But yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my personal rank. Loki's my favorite, and Hawkeye is a close second. Hawkeye was fantastic. I loved Hawkeye. It was fun. It had action. It fucking had everything you want in a TV show. It was great.
It was a good buddy film, TV series.
Yeah. I know we're not going to get a second season or anything, but I wish we would because it was really good.
Yeah.
So, what is that? Ohio Patriot says Girl versus Giant was also awesome. Girl versus Giant? What are you talking about? I don't even know. Sam Anarchy says, do you and your wife like crime dramas, and which ones do you guys watch? Crime drama. It depends on what it is. I mean, I guess what do you consider a crime drama? I'm trying to think what would classify as a crime drama that we
like. The Wire, Sopranos.
My wife loves The Sopranos. I've never seen it. I love Justified. She's never seen it. I'm trying to think. I mean, you'd have to name some for me to know like what you would consider a crime drama. I know there's some stuff we watch. There was a show 10 Star that we used to watch that's great. Do you consider that a crime drama? Yeah, that one's kind of a crime drama. Is Yellowstone a crime drama? It's a drama.
Yeah, I would say that would be.
Okay, then Yellowstone's probably the biggest one. If that's considered a crime drama, because there's lots of corruption and shit like that. We do watch that stuff. Yellowstone's fucking fantastic.
Yes.
So Yellowstone is in my top 3 shows currently on television right now, which is Yellowstone, House of the Dragon, and For All Mankind. Those are the 3 best shows on TV right now.
Yeah, I still got to watch For All Mankind.
Dude, it's such a good show, man.
Yeah, you're hyping that up for me, and I really want to watch it.
It's such a good show. Hot Patriot says Game of Thrones scene, the Mormont girl versus the zombie giant.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a good scene. Yeah. I mean, it sucked that she died, but it was a good scene.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I'm blanking on what would be considered a crime drama. Like The Wire, yeah, I get that one, but I never watched it. Neither has my wife. That's a show neither one of us had ever watched. So there's a lot of shows from like the late 90s into the mid 2000s that I completely missed just because I was not watching TV at that point in my life. You know, that was in my 20s and I was not watching television. So,
and then there's like a fine line between crime dramas and police dramas.
Yeah. Now we do watch stuff like Billions. I don't know if that's a crime drama. Secession, is that a crime drama? I don't know. So I you know, it depends.
I would say if it's about organized crime and that kind of stuff, I would say that's a crime drama.
Like Billions and Secession, right? Like organized crime on the level of like big corporate corruption, like that's what those shows are about. Mm-hmm. So you know, so I would kind of consider them, for me, that would kind of be a crime drama. And those shows are good. I like Billions, and well, I haven't watched Billions since the main guy left the show season before last. And that kind of pissed me off. And then I haven't watched since then. I need to. I want to catch up. But it kind of sucked that he left the show. And then Secession is great. It's on HBO. That's a great show.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only had 2 seasons so far. So, you know, again, it just depends on what you consider a crime drama. So, Sam Atticus says, I mean, CBS shows like Chicago PD, Law and Order, that type of stuff. But yeah, Yellowstone is fantastic and Justified is awesome. I don't watch any of those CBS shows. I never got into, you know, like the Law and Orders, or not. I got nothing Law and Orders NBC, but whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Never got into the Law and Orders and the CSIs and the NCIS and that kind of stuff. Never got into any of those shows. I mean, I may have seen episodes here and there or bits and pieces of episodes or whatever the fuck it is, but I've never I've never watched any of those shows to a level that like I know anything really about them outside of what you can gather from like just knowing what the show's about. So
I did like The Shield and like NYPD Blue, and Blue Bloods was pretty good too.
Never watched any of those. The
Shield
was
actually,
one I did want to watch. I did want to watch The Shield, but
yeah, that's probably one of the better ones.
Yeah, because I did like all the FX shows. The Shield, Rescue Me, fucking loved Rescue Me. Rescue Me was a fantastic show. I liked a lot of the stuff that FX has put out over the years. A lot of their dramas have been really good. And The Shield was one of them that I think I was late to the game because The Shield like premiered in like 2003 when I wasn't watching TV, and then by the time like I got into it or that I was watching TV and stuff again, like I'd missed so many seasons that I just never went back and watched them. Somebody in the chat's mentioning Sons of Anarchy. Yeah, Sons of Anarchy is fucking fantastic. I watched every single episode of Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, so, it was good. I didn't really like the end though, when he turned into Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, I get what happened. Like, look, I knew from the beginning of the show that if it had made it to a full end, he was not going to make it. They were all bad guys. There was no good guys on that show. If there was a good guy on the show, they died.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there was, I didn't feel like that, him like not getting a redemption story or anything like that, or being able to walk off into the sunset didn't bother me.
Well, that was his redemption story. He died for his kids, basically.
Yeah.
So that his kids wouldn't turn out like him.
Yeah. Well, Duke is out there in the chat for some reason. Is that actually Duke, or did somebody just change their name to Duke? I don't know. Because I don't recognize that icon. I don't know if that's Duke. I don't know if that's Duke or somebody pretending to be Duke. I don't know. If it is Duke, why he's not in here, I don't know. And he will get much shit for that over the course of the next week for not being here. But anyway,
so should we talk about House of the Dragons? That might summon them.
Yeah, talk about House of the Dragon. We'll talk about House of the Dragon and Warhammer.
Yeah. And not mention aliens or demons or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, Piper said it's spelled wrong. Yeah, it is spelled wrong. Liberty's spelled wrong. That's right. I didn't catch that. It's not really Duke. It's a fake Duke. It's a faux Duke. No. A couple that shoots over in the chat says, For All Mankind is the most underrated, not hyped show right now. It's a fantastic show. Best TV show. Best show on TV, in my opinion. Dude, it is phenomenal. It is such a damn good show. There's 3 seasons out right now. Season 4 is coming sometime next year. And I highly, highly recommend it. And I will say it one more time for anybody that hasn't heard me say this. The premise of the show is basically what would have happened to the United States, to the rest of the world, to the space race, all that stuff, if Russia had got to the moon first. What would have happened? So that's the basis of the show. I won't say any more than that. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it there. But if you like stuff about history, especially recent history, if you like NASA, space travel, that type of stuff, or if you like alternate history stories, what if stories, like what if this had been different? It fits all those things. In addition to just being a great drama, just with fantastic characters, that doesn't just delve into that stuff. It's also like about their lives, and obviously it focuses on the people that work around NASA and stuff. Fantastic show, people. Fan-fucking-tastic show. I cannot recommend For All Mankind enough.
You're usually spot on with your recommendations, too. Like, you got me into watching Expanse, and then I started reading the Expanse books.
Yeah.
And I'm just a major fan of that.
Expanse was great. Loved it. Still hold out hope at some point that somebody might pick it up and run with that. So,
well, they got one more arc with what's out there in the books. They got at least one more arc to do.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's now been off the air for almost 2 not quite 2 years, but like 2 seasons worth of time. So I don't know. It may just be gone. So.
And if they do like pick it up like 5 or 6 years later, it doesn't matter because the characters are a lot older in the books. Like there's a time gap.
Yeah.
So that would be fine.
Yeah. Oh man, good times. Let's see what else do we have. I covered all the stuff I was going to talk about today. There wasn't a lot going on. Like I said, I'm not watching Andor. We covered all this Walking Dead stuff. Here's another one. I tried to watch the new Hellraiser show on Hulu. Right, me and my wife tried to watch it. Could not get into it. We tried watching it last night. We got about 15, 20 minutes in, and we were both just kind of bored. Tried watching it again today, actually. We had to go and run some errands this morning and then came back around noon-ish. Sat down, tried to watch it again. I think we got another 10, 15, 20 minutes in, something like that. Again, utterly boring. So, I mean, total, I'm about 40, 45 minutes, something like that, into this show, this movie. And I'm just fucking bored.
Was it kind of like what they did with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it's like just not as good?
I don't know. It's like they're building to something, and that's cool, I guess, if you know nothing about Hellraiser, right? Like if you've ever gone back and watched the first Hellraiser movie, right? Like it kind of slowly burns into the shit that's going on, right? It slowly burns in. Even with that movie's from 1988 or some shit like that. And it's introducing you to this world and all that kind of stuff. Everybody fucking knows who Pinhead is,
right?
Like, there's no like, why are you slow burning into this shit? Like, the 1 or 2 times I think that you quickly see one of the Cenobites, and I think one of them actually. I think you see maybe both times it's Pinhead. I don't know because both times he's in the fucking shadow, or she. I guess it's a chick now. Whatever. Mm-hmm. And it like by the time you're getting 40 minutes into this damn thing, there's still not really a lot that's happened. And I just found it fucking boring. And I'm like, dude, this is supposed to be like a horror movie about a franchise that even if you've never, ever, ever watched a single Hellraiser movie, you know the premise of Hellraiser. It's been like freaking parodied on Saturday Night Live. I was just watching, there was an episode of Rick and Morty from last season that the whole episode was parodying Hellraiser. Like everybody knows what's going on with Hellraiser and Pinhead and all that kind of stuff. Don't slow burn into this shit. Like give us something, because I'm bored, man. I don't even want to go back and try and finish watching it. I mean, if my wife is like, hey, let's try and finish watching it, I probably will. But like at this point, I don't even give a shit about it.
Right.
So, I cannot recommend that you check that thing out. Honestly, I mean, I don't know, unless something happens in the second half that's just really good, but like it shouldn't. This is not the type of show, and this is not the franchise to do that slow burn bullshit to, because it doesn't work. I don't care. So
it's kind of like the Werewolf by Midnight. You're just not having good luck with the horror TV.
I'm just not so movie. Far. Which, and that's what kills me. Like with the Hellraiser thing, right? Like if it just sucks, it sucks. What sucked about the Werewolf by Night one was that that last 15 minutes was genuinely really good and showed us, what this show could have been, and was just like, but we chose not to do that. Here's a little fun end to the show. Here's the werewolf. Here's some action. Here's Man-Thing and the werewolf in like a little buddy cop, type of scenario. And it's really good. And it's funny. And it's entertaining. And this is what we could have given you for the whole hour. But instead we said, fuck you. And no. That's what pissed me off about Werewolf by Night. Because I think the actors were good. I think the characters are there. Obviously, who was ever writing it could write good stuff because the last 15 minutes are good. But they just chose to give us shit for the first, 2 2/3 or 3/4 or whatever it is of the show. So, you know, yeah. No, it's just not. It just wasn't good.
That would have been that would have been okay if it was like a 5-part episode series, whatever, and it's like the first episode starts off slow.
Yeah, and I
gives
would
you
have been
that
fine
camping
with
feel.
that. That happens all the time. That's always what happens with shows, is you get that build up to figure out what's going on. But no, when it's a one-off, no.
Yeah.
No. So, and it's not like even like they were like, well, we couldn't do that because then we would have had to explain all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. Well, you didn't explain shit anyway. Like the characters, all these other rando characters showing up for this funeral that fight each other for the first 3/4 of the show. You didn't explain anything about them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know what the excuse was, but either way, it just, I can't recommend it. Like, again, skip to the end if you want, because nothing significant happens in the beginning that you need to see. So, I mean, I guess if you like Marvel and Werewolf by Night and stuff, I mean, go ahead and watch it. It's fine. I'm not saying don't watch it if you want to, but just know that it ain't great, man. Like, there's a lot of wasted time.
I think if you're a fan of the Werewolf, you're not gonna like this show, right?
No, because it didn't show up till the very end.
Right.
So, like, if you're a fan of the Werewolf by Night, if you're a fan of Man-Thing, like, what's funny is it's mostly about this chick. Like, she's the main character, and she's the daughter of the guy that died, right? And she's one of the people that's trying to get the Bloodstone. You know, that they're all fighting for it throughout the episode. And she's kind of the main character. The main character isn't even the dude from the title of the fucking show. He's the second main character. He's the secondary character. So it just seemed very pointless to me as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, take that for what you will. But, yeah. So, yeah, I was disappointed. I was disappointed because I like Marvel stuff, man. I mean, in general, Marvel, like, look, there's a couple things here and there I don't like. I don't like Miss Marvel. You know, there's a couple of the movies I'm not big fans of. Don't particularly like the second Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, Like, I watched it at the movies, and I think I've watched it once since then. I'll probably never watch it again, to be honest with you. It's I don't know.
I kind of actually liked it. Like, I thought it was fun.
I love the first one.
FBI.
I love Ant-Man. The first one, I think, is a great movie. The second one, honestly, I was just kind of bored.
I can see that. I thought it was fun with the whole jailbreak. Well, not jailbreak, but like house arrest break.
Yeah, I mean,
from the FBI and that kind of stuff.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying, like, in relation to things that Marvel has put out, it is one of my least favorite.
Yeah, I can see that.
So like, you know, but in general, despite people bitching and complaining, most of what Marvel puts out is really good. Like 98% of what Marvel puts out and has put out since 2009 has been good. There's some things that have missed, but most of it's been good. So that's why this Werewolf by Night thing is disappointing. Had it sucked all the way through, I honestly would have been more forgiving of it. But the fact that they showed us how good it could have been in the very end just pissed me off. I was like, oh, you just intentionally decided to not give us the good shit. Because that's what they did. So, you know, whatever. Take it for what you will. Watch it if you want. It's Halloween. Watch some shitty pseudo-horror stuff. Because it's not really horror. Honestly. Not to any level that we expect today. Like, yeah, and maybe in the 1960s, that would have counted as a horror show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But not today. That's not what we would consider horror today. So if you want to watch it, cool. Go watch it. Enjoy it if you can. Whatever. I was just kind of pissed off and disappointed at it. So, but hey, look, guys, I think that is going to wrap it up for today. We've gone through everything I was going to talk about today. So we will see you guys manana. I'm going to do, if you're over on the Never Enough Ammo side, I'm going to do a Trigger Time tomorrow. So we will do that over on that channel. And then, of course, we'll be back here next week on this channel for another Geek Chat next Saturday, 7 p.m. Central. And so, yeah, that's going to do it for today. So thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on the Never Enough Ammo side, thank you. If you're watching on the Geek Fusion side, thank you. Appreciate you watching. But that will do it for today. We'll see you guys later. Deuces, yo. Take it easy.
Later, guys.